All right, with that, we'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is Jude Reed had said that she is not going to attend this evening, and I did not see a message from Mr. Russell, but I may have missed that as well. So I will entertain a motion to seat Maria for Jude. Jude had asked that Maria be seated.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Garvin.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Say nay. we had one to start out with.
Time delay.
Yeah. Great. And so we have Mr. Russell to fill as well. I'll propose Mr. Olson, which I assume was Andy's wish.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Thank you. All right, introduction, Tim.
Yes. Well, we have the great pleasure to introduce Anita Mancini. She is, come on up, Annette, you're the second in command of the North Branford Finance Department. Here, have a seat. And we are very pleased that she has accepted our offer to become the new finance director. And during our discussions with references and others, she is very detail-oriented, will not stop till the job's done, and just really an amazing person. So we're very happy that you're coming aboard. And I guess Eric Knapp was for a spell in your town.
Yes.
Yeah, you probably didn't have a lot of overlap with him, but...
Yeah, I did.
You did?
When his seat was vacant during the audit process, I had to go over and find out what they had for bonds and certificates, and so I learned part of that job. So when he was there, I handed it to him when he walked in. I said, "Oh, it's all yours now." So we did.
You're an accountant by training?
Yes.
Are you CPA or no?
No.
Okay.
I have my MBA, and my concentration was accounting, finance, and HR.
Yeah. Well, we are very pleased because it's been a long haul, but we're getting the team reassembled, so we're great.
Very happy to be here.
So,
Thank you for
welcome.
this opportunity.
Yeah, welcome.
Happy to have you.
Proud to have you.
So Monday she kicks off, and Kelly Sterner will overlap and provide whatever assistance is required, and probably won't be long before you'll say thanks for get you going on your own steam. But yeah, and we've hired Tracy Beatty, who was our second person in the finance department. She's she's panning out very well and got a pretty good grip on things, so it'll be a good team.
That's great.
Welcome.
We're looking forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I look forward to working with
Are
all
you
of you.
leaving your North Branford job?
Yes.
And that's a public finance position also?
I'm
like this?
the staff accountant. I work for the director of finance, and I'm the staff accountant.
Okay, so you have at least that experience with municipal finances?
Yes, and prior to that, I was with the Board of Education in East Haven.
Oh, good.
So I have both
Welcome to
sides.
the
Not a small endeavor.
Yeah. So you're welcome to stick around, or if you have other commitments.
Yeah, Anita, it's a perfunctory meeting, I think, tonight, unless...
I'll stay and listen.
Just for the future, the Board of Finance, we generally have the finance director come to the meeting and talk about the financial reports, which we haven't had for a while.
Yeah.
But and any insights and so forth. And but other than that, the budget process probably in your town too gets going in December, into January, and pretty much first quarter there are weekly meetings. And it's a collaborative effort where board members, we call them specialists, so we have 9 members on the board, 3 alternates, 6 regular, and each has an area of responsibility for the budget. So they visit with that spending agency and talk with them directly, and then come back and help frame up what we're going to do for their request. So it's a good group because it's a collaborative issue with the Selectmen and the Board of Finance and Finance Department. So we wrap it up in April, and hopefully the voters think it's a good idea.
So now, currently, what we do is I prepare something for the council every month. So there's a financial report. You
Yeah.
do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have our financial reports, and what Nicole had done was kind of highlighted any items for the Board of Finance
Okay.
that would be unusual or of note. So even if the month wasn't unusual, but she would know that something big was coming up, she would highlight it, bullet points, half a dozen bullet points of revenue and half a dozen
Show
bullet
you
points
some
of
of the
expenses.
archives.
Yes.
And so we have BMSI, which is akin to Munis. You instituted Munis in North Branford,
Yes.
so I guess you can give us the good, bad, and the ugly of BMSI versus Munis, but...
As long as you have a manual, I should be okay.
Yeah,
If you have
yeah.
a manual.
Yeah.
I just spent 2 years incorporating Munis in the town of North Branford. I converted the whole chart of accounts to meet the state of Connecticut's requirements. And then
They should do the same for their own accounts, but keep going.
Yes, but I followed the uniform chart of accounts, so everything met there. And then we got delayed because our project manager left, and then a new project manager came on, so it was delayed, and the payroll just went live July 1st, and everything's in place for the town.
Did you have an outside payroll service in North Branford?
No.
Yeah.
We did it
All
in-house. Yes.
Well, they do the school and they do the sewer system, right?
We, the
WPCA?
Board of Ed does their own payroll, but all their checks and everything came through my account.
Wow.
So when I did my reconciliation, all their checks and anything that they paid was through my system.
Yeah.
So they would send over a file, and they would export it. I would import it into our system.
Yeah.
And all the reconciliations went through me.
Yeah.
So we were responsible for all the money. So the sewers, we did sewers.
Yeah, you're WPCA, so they were,
Yeah, it was,
Billing out.
yes.
yeah.
So we had to pay North Haven, Branford for the water flow. And we...
But that was out of their hands, right? The WPCA's hands?
No, yeah, we were separate. We had, they had their own sewers. North Branford was partly sewers. And some of it was a lot of people had well septics,
Yeah.
for everything else. Yeah, so we billed every 6 months for, the sewage, the 2 payments. The same thing with the taxes. So we did the taxes and everything.
Yeah. That may be coming for us.
The sewers?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
at some point.
And
It's a
beach
big
area.
project.
In the beach area.
North Branford don't have it, but East Haven has the beach.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's where ours would be, so.
oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a question because WPCA's have sticky fingers. The history has been sticky fingers in Connecticut, so.
So they want a part of, that was something that you did talk about, that they wanted part of that, but can't you do it, you have to do it with them?
It is pretty far in the future at this point.
Oh.
So the project has
Yeah.
not even been funded and decided upon in terms of scope. So
Yeah.
it's been quite a while. But that may be something, given your experience, that your experience will be helpful with. So that's great.
Good.
Great.
All right, well, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. All right. Regular agenda. Minutes of July 18th, regular meeting. Now, everyone should have gotten their packets in the mail. Early, so give just a minute. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, discussion, after people have flipped through, changes, revisions. With that, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Abstain?
With one abstention. All right, financial reports. Again, we got these a little bit early. And
What we can do is to, maybe the first thing to look at, which is consistent with how the reports used to be, there's a thing called actual and anticipated revenues, July 22 through June 23. It's a two-sided revenue thing, and that shows a negative $730,000 with revenue. That's a good thing. So that, subject to further refinements by CPAs and so forth. You can see that the tax department, a variety of higher than anticipated revenues, $148,000. The building department did very well with $247,000 better than budget, and Parks and Recs, 104. So,
Tim, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Do you know why there were those overages for building in Parks and Rec?
I think there's just activity. I think it's as simple as that. I don't know that there's any building boom or anything, but
What is building department revenue?
so 1% of the cost of a renovation
We're
or
talking about building permits?
that's the bulk of it, yeah. So that'd be close to $25 million worth of stuff that's getting built.
And Parks and Rec, there were a lot more programs
yeah.
this year.
Yeah,
There have been in the past.
Winnie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe offset by some expenses associated with that.
Yeah.
Nevertheless,
I mean, for example,
we hired an additional Parks and Rec person, and to triple the revenue was pretty good.
Yeah, right.
In our usual packages, the carryovers, which is something would be up for approval, is the one with the colored lines.
Now, Tim, is it being proposed tonight that because in August, historically, we discussed carryovers in detail and
Yeah,
approved
well,
them. Should we
Kelly,
do that tonight, or should we wait?
no, I think we're prepared because Kelly worked on this, and she and I went through it as well, and so I think you can see there's columns which return to surplus, carryover, transfer to another fund. So some of these have whiskers, but you can see that certain things are, there are a number of things being returned to surplus, but you can go through and see what's to be carried over. And then, for instance, the town hall exterior doors, that's going to go into a building fund, and the grassy hill will go into an account, a separate account for that. And then as you get down further into the material, the fiscal 22-23, there are a variety of items that have been requested to be carried over. So in the aggregate, about $260,000 would be returned to surplus, 604 would be carried over, and 996 would be put in other funds. It's not like that won't be spent, it's just being put into a fund, so it doesn't fit in the operating budget.
So can I just ask a process question? Do all these various departments, is there a process by which they request that these funds be carried over?
Right, forms go out to all spending agencies saying, please review your operating, your capital, and get back with what you believe you'd like to carry over.
Okay.
If you don't need it anymore, that you return to surplus. The ones going into funds really are not up to the departments. But yeah, each of these groups received a form asking for their desire about their existing carryover, and in the case of the last page and a half, the anything in from the operating budget that they'd like to carry over.
And so, Tim, also importantly, we've been more vigilant in the last several years about carrying over stuff from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
This has happened. And it looks like that also is happening here, where the carryover from 15-16 goes away. When we say return to surplus, it just means it's not allowed to be drawn.
Right, gone.
Yeah. So, and then we've got $5,000 for the Lower Mill Pond Dam engineering, which may happen, and then everything else kind of goes away until we hit 2021.
Yeah. Yeah, and some you search, they're going to do this survey, by golly, and I think there's a second amount as well. I think there's 15,000, so like 35,000 for surveys there.
And then we've got Ferry Road.
Ferry Road is hopefully going to go out to bid this fall. And then on I think the second page,
Most of it goes away. Biggest one is sidewalks for Sound View.
we have to keep that afloat because the state will do an audit, and depending on what they determine, we were trying to calculate what we should send back of the $400,000 grant, but Kelly said that we just wait for them to do the audit and they'll tell us. And also, there's some final retainage that would be paid to the company.
So we simply need to encumber those funds in the general fund.
Yeah, because those hopefully will be sent out certainly this fiscal year, but survey money and then some town hall work. This cross-lane floor drain that we've been hearing from facilities that Cross-Lane Firehouse has some issues, so we're not sure where that's all going.
When you're at water level,
Well, I don't know, it's below the water table, but it's, there have been issues with some of the foundational columns and so forth, so we don't know at this point how dramatic that whole thing will be.
so that all makes sense.
Yeah. And then the current year stuff is a variety, quite a few items that are supposed to be taken care of this year.
Well, one big question is, because some of these are one-offs, and some we may have budgeted for. For example, open space contracted steward. Now, if we carry over what we had budgeted last year, and we've budgeted another $10,000, that means that they've got $17,000 to work.
Yeah.
Is that too much, too little?
Well, I think when we looked at that down on Ferry Road, that open space parcel that they're doing a lot of weed eradication kind of below you.
Yeah.
I think there's a program next year that's going to use money to eradicate the invasive and that sort of stuff. Senior Center architect, they still have money remaining on their contract there. That should be wrapping up in the next 4 months. They should be done with that. So, WPCA has a couple of items. I don't think I don't think we were too aggressive with people to say you didn't use it, you're going to lose it. But I think we can watch it carefully to make sure this stuff gets off.
So the report for July 2023 through July 2023 is our current budget, right?
Yeah.
If I look at Rogers Lake, for example, and Rogers Lake has water testing.
If you place the sheets you're looking at with these, Kelly removed the carryover request for Rogers Lake invoice for the water because it was paid before June.
So this is the new version of
Yeah. The only thing missing is Rogers Lake.
So that was a bad example.
Yeah, that was a
Because it
bad
just got
example.
fixed.
That was quick fix. Thank you.
All right, so the packet that we were sent, it was sent. So these new. Yep.
Placed it. No carryovers needed for Rogers Lake water invoice.
Right.
Yes, we can look at the last page and see.
So then Selectman's Office, payroll HR consultant. So this is July, so
So it looks like carryover column's the only one that was reduced a little bit. You know what was taken out?
Rogers Lake,
The 8,000?
the water invoice was paid in last fiscal.
That's the only item.
Where is that? What number is that?
This is,
You have to go to
Right, that old one? Oh, is Rogers Lake HCO testing?
it was eight grand in
I
it.
see it.
So that's gone.
Yeah.
So the only other material one, it looks like, is the HR consultant. And all I'm checking, Tim, is just that we didn't double the budget for something. So I see 17.5 got carried over, but we only budgeted $200 in this year. So they still have $17,700.
Which number's that one?
This is, for example, this is 218, Selectman's Office payroll, HR consultant.
Yeah.
So it's under.
Well, we have the consultant on board for a 6-month contract.
Yeah,
I think that's something like 39,000. And so this money plus something, the operating budget should be,
But that's what I understand to be David's question, namely whether somebody has looked at the operating budget in conjunction with the carryovers to make sure that the sum of the two is the right number.
right, yeah.
that's exactly right. So if I look, again, just sticking with material numbers for WPCA, they've got carryover that they asked for $35 grand. And again, this comes up every year where people don't understand the concept of carryover, who may request it, not knowing that we've also budgeted. So we've budgeted $25 grand this year for legal, and we're carrying over $35 grand. So their legal budget for this year is $60,000. And then the next item is also project consultant, so that's WPCA. They've now got $57,000.
And I don't know as I sit here, you probably don't either, whether that's the right number, but it's certainly the right question.
Yeah, yeah.
So Tim, as a part of that whole request process where they request for funds to be carried over, is there a question on whatever form where they have to provide justification and then agree on, like, this is what my budget is for next year, inclusive of carryover and what's in the budget? So they're acknowledging what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know how detailed that is in terms of adding the 24 budget to the 23 carryovers to say the sum of the two is this. So I think that the response is saying we're if it's in the next year's budget and it's a carryover, they would probably say that they need both those sums.
Yeah, so the items that we discussed, like capital, I'm pretty sure that's not, we haven't double provided for, the architectural drawings for sidewalk project or whatever. So looking at it, and it's not that many items that we're talking about, but there are two material ones, and they are WPCA, and
Yeah, it's a wild card, that one.
it's a total wild card. So the question is just an affirmative from them. Is 60 grand really how much you're going to spend in legal this year, or was it 25? Because I heard from the guys on the WPCA that they probably would not be spending that much this year.
Well, if we're still waiting for the state to say whether they're going to do that loan, and I think the beaches are, and maybe even the WPCA are getting to the point where they're saying, look, if we don't hear from you soon, we're just spinning our wheels, because this is a certain thing when it was rolled out by the DEEP. And if they say, well, they're starting to mumble that, well, there are other deserving communities that might come ahead of you or something, and if they say, okay, we'll only give you chump change, I think they'd say, we're done. So it may all come to a grinding halt. It'd be a shame, but we just don't know.
Yeah.
In the 24 budget, which is a later printout, it says July 23 through
July 23.
July 23. It's the month of July, but it has all the 24 numbers in it.
That's right.
So the second category is human resources, which has a salary line of $55,009. So if I think between the two, we probably would be overfunded. But I think when we made a deal with the current consultant, we didn't really have it nailed down for this 6-month interval. And
Right. That would be in...
It might be that we will not have a full-time person. It just seems a town our size with a human resource full-time, it would be a big kind of unusual. So, but we didn't want to, figured if the money was there, carry it over, and then we'll see where we come out.
So I guess the only thing that I would personally have a question about, and not questioning it, just asking WPCA, because it's the most material. I mean, $1,000 for Soundview signage is not going to kill them.
Which
15 million.
Which number is that?
WPCA legal, and then their project consultant. If you add these carryovers to what we budgeted this year, legal is now 60 grand that they have available to spend this year before they would have to do something, come back to us or whatever. Project consultant is 52 grand. I think it was 25 grand that was in the budget.
I think that's
20.
Dave, I wonder
20
whether
grand
that
in the
analysis
budget.
is correct. In other words, if a department comes to us and say they want $50,000 for this year, and we say, okay, we put $50,000 into the operating budget for the fiscal year 24.
Yeah.
And then come June 30th, they happen to have $20,000 left over from last year.
Yeah.
And carry it over.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the case that means they now have 70, or is it the case that we satisfy the 50 in part from the $20,000 carryover? You know what I mean? So the 20,000 old money is exhausted first before we dip into new money.
Well, the way carryovers, I understood them to work as well, is it's more project-based than it is legal fees, right? So in other words,
But usually it's because we were going to spend this much. It was going to be $100,000 this year, but we only spent 70. We've got $30,000 more work to do.
Yeah.
For that contract, and so we're carrying over, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But for operating budget, it's just more confusing to me.
Yeah. And I know that we have gotten better about this, but, in a little bit of the turmoil this year.
Well, I guess the question, though, is narrowly focused, is whether the department that has a $50,000 operating budget and a $20,000 carryover, do they in fact have the authority to spend $70,000?
I think they would.
I think they do.
Just by virtue of the fact that the two numbers add up to?
Yeah, but your point...
My point is we authorize 50, and unless the 20,000 is attributable to something that we authorized for last year that didn't get done last year,
Right.
then it's okay.
Yeah.
But if it's just sitting there because their expenses were 20,000 less than they anticipated, and so it's just extra money,
Then that's not right. Yeah. So you shouldn't use, and this was what happened maybe 3 or 4 years ago when we first started to get our arms around the carryover because it was out of control in terms of complexity and everything else, was just that question was, if you have a project that doesn't get completed in a particular year, you carry over the 15 extra grand that it takes to finish that project.
Right.
Totally get that, right? If you have a legal budget, that goes null and void if you didn't spend it. And tell us what you think you should be spending in this current year.
yeah, well, I don't know how our accounting is from an accrual versus cash, but it's just conceivable that the lawyers did another $30,000 worth of work and hasn't billed it yet. Would that result in a carryover?
That could be too.
But that would be different.
Yeah, but it's funky when it's not project specific.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm asking if when they're requesting carryover, if they're providing some sort of justification of, I would like to carry over legal because we had legal do a whole bunch of work in May and we haven't gotten a bill yet.
Right. Again, I think
to understand why they're asking for that.
But WPCA, there's now negotiations going on with New London because the initial agreement ends in September, and New London's coming back and saying, well, we're going to up a bunch of fees because they can do that. And the towns of East Lyme and Waterford may also get on a bandwagon and say, well, it's a new day, we need a little more. They're going through some arm wrestling now, and that's why they're kind of trying to get the stuff figured out, because if this isn't going to move forward, we don't want to pay New London, a bunch of money, and then it craters later. Yeah. So WPCA is a very difficult one because it's...
You're right. It's a bad example, but
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking...
BJ hit the theoretical question.
I'm looking at the budget book.
So kind of put your finger on the practical question, and I don't know if you know the answer, Tim, whether with respect to each of these carryovers where the department, you said, yes, I want to carry over X dollars, was that communicated to somebody in the finance department to whom, or to you, to whom it made sense? Has there been a thoughtful decision made with respect to a request on each of these?
Yeah, well, Kelly's the primary contact, and of course her tenure has been rather short, so she didn't have the length of knowledge that Nicole had. So some of these people will say, well, we may need it, the tree commission may need something and all that. So I think there was probably wasn't as harsh as you might expect.
Well, a better example is the EDC. Hello, sir. EDC is carrying over postage of $420. Postage for $420?
I mean, do they have some big mailer plans, or?
Well, if
Right,
they
like,
did,
that's what I would
if they
expect,
did,
is
that
we
should be
wanna
in the
carry this
operating
over.
budget, not carried over.
Yeah.
So I think overall, my personal feeling is this is a good conversation, and I know that it's been tumultuous with Nicole's departure a little bit. I'm not uncomfortable with the amounts that we're talking about, and she maybe had more conversations about that, but I wouldn't be looking to carry over postage and other miscellaneous, like carrying that over, that doesn't feel right. Again, it's $900, but it's simple.
Well, but it raises the process question.
Yeah, yeah. And again, if you're going to go out, because there's so many constituents, you need to be consistent about that. And that does fall into the purview of finance director, and they need direction from above as well. So, Andy, there's a new, actually, do we have one more? Whatever you were sent. Yeah.
Or I crossed off there.
Here's the new one, I think.
Yeah.
Here's the new one.
Want to make sure this is the old one.
Very modest.
This one, yeah.
Very modest.
Okay.
So, and maybe you can remember the conversation that we're having right now. Again, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable approving all of this because of the immateriality of some of it is, and maybe we do go through this every year, but is people carrying stuff over, not looking at the operating budget, and all of a sudden they've got twice the budget that they had available. So, and not because of reasons or anything, just kind of people aren't thinking that way.
Yep.
So,
I think we go through the same thing every year.
I mean, so just to add one more layer to this, I'm looking at the budget book. And for WPCA Legal Counsel, their budget last year was $35,000. And then for the project consultant, their budget was $37,000. So it means they didn't spend any that they budgeted last year.
well, no. If you look at the overall spend for WPCA, let's just look and see. I'm sure they have some legal.
That one carry over the previous year also.
I'm sure that,
WPCA.
no,
Not much.
no, they didn't spend anything, you're right.
But they didn't know what kind of work they would have.
No,
I mean, that's...
not faulting them.
Right.
But that shouldn't have turned into carryover.
Right.
Right.
That should go back.
So I may, because those are the two material items. Unless they think there's 60, they didn't spend anything last year in legal or project consulting.
And what do we have in the current year budget for them?
25,000 and 20,000 respectively.
So there's something in the current year budget, and we might assume that's what they think they're going to need as opposed to the 50 and 70 this year.
Right.
Yeah, again, it's an assumption, but it's probably not a bad assumption.
Right.
Yeah, because their treasurer turned over as well.
Well, I
so-
think that we ought to do a little more due diligence on this, or somebody, I should.
Well, why don't we take a look at the items that we have questions on and make them material.
I mean, so you pointed out both the EDC other and EDC postage.
Yep. That's a little just cheesy.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to put miscellaneous.
And contracted services survey, EDC, we should just ask them.
Cheryl Poyer.
Yeah.
The survey may be not, a land survey, it might be a questionnaire type thing.
Yeah, but it's a question. And then police education and training, that also seems a little cheesy. Like, that seems like they're adding this year's budget if we haven't provided for training.
Well, there will be an item on the agenda. The state of Connecticut is mandating that all police departments be accredited, and for us, this could be between $20,000 and $25,000 over 3 years. They want to make sure that the policies are in place correctly and that also that the policies are being followed. So there are 3 stages, and we had a presentation from a lady who was a police officer in Milford, and now she's doing this consulting work for people to get toned up. So that's the kind of thing, I mean, this I don't think is directly related to that, but if we move in that direction, we'd be spending either committing to spend $20,000 or even the higher number. We get into it later on, but
So they've asked for 5,700. They budgeted the same amount that they had last year, that they only spent 7,000 on.
I have
Police education and training. Last year, they budgeted
12.
the budget book has 5,000. No.
we also had tuition for...
Sorry, 12,600.
Right,
Yeah,
12,600.
12,600.
Yeah.
They budgeted last year 12,600.
Yeah.
And when I look at June's number, they'd spent 7,000. They're carrying over 5,800 or 5,700 or whatever, but they budgeted the same 12,600 this year. So they're,
That's a question. Doesn't make sense?
yeah, so.
Unless they have some training that they know.
Right, if Tim.
Yeah, see,
Or that's new information that they know.
Tim
they need,
observed,
like,
yeah.
Well, just also please understand that we lost them when they first did the budget for last year. We had senior officers on, and they've left the force, so their budget was counted in. And also, they can only send you so many months after you have to get certified. So another officer may not have been ready by June 30th, and may be going in July, and that's why it's a carryover.
But that's just a question to present.
Yeah.
Because there may, and there probably is a legitimate reason, and it could be closer to 20 than it is 12,600, and they factored it in. That's an easy, yes, we factored that in, we need that carryover. Okay, get it. Your total budget this year, though, is $18,000. That's what we're telling you. You know, is that what you truly need? And somebody might get a little shifty and say, well, we're 14 or whatever. And then tree other miscellaneous, that's the same sort of thing. You just never know. And so people are carrying over and boosting this year's budget, it feels like.
There's
actually
three other miscellaneous up in last year's carryover too.
Interestingly, the stuff in red is identified as red items need decision.
Right.
So maybe these are ones that aren't so clear.
And they're not, and those dollars aren't over in the carryover amount to fiscal 2024, the red.
What do you mean they aren't?
Well,
They're
they're not
surplus
included,
column.
they're in
They're
return.
not included in the total?
So that's, I guess, why the decision needs to be made, that right now they're going to,
And several of those
Return to
still
surplus.
have question marks in that
oh,
column.
it's like that
We have questions
EDC,
on
Contracted
them, so.
Services survey, $7,000 from 2018, 2019
Right.
is there. That's kind of the same number that we're talking about, the 7,200. I wouldn't think we need
We've
it.
actually got 3 line items for
Tree
tree
the 6,500 IT consultant carryover. Does that make sense?
No. I'm not aware why that would need to be carried over.
So item 197 is tree other miscellaneous. Then we have items 236 and 237, that totals $5,400, also under tree other miscellaneous.
One of them looks as if it's proposed to go back to surplus.
Yeah, that first one, 197, so,
Yep. Why are there 2 line items for the same thing?
Right.
Or respectively.
Right.
So, carryover votes, we can push this off until September because it really doesn't come into play unless we've got an outstanding invoice from work that's been performed in the prior year.
I guess if something was of urgency, we could always do something ahead of time.
Or, just looking at this, miscellaneous other, I don't feel should ever be carried over. That just seems funky.
Find the hat.
And then the 420 improved, I think is a little...
Yeah, that's...
Andy and I were talking about 192 IT consultant, does it make sense?
2 years ago.
So, should that be ditched?
Well, Tom's next to it, and, you know, he may have a reason that needs to be carried over again.
Well, then we've got another WPCA legal carryover. Oh, I'm sorry, that's return to surplus. I'm sorry, yeah. So the 6,500, that's now Tom's call.
Yeah.
Right?
And I assume Tim, did Tom approach you on the 6,500 from 2 years ago that for IT consultant to carry that over?
Not specifically.
For line 192.
No. And that didn't ring a bell.
I mean, that's 2 years old. If we didn't spend it 2 years ago, we didn't spend it last year. I'm not aware of anything that's major.
Yeah.
So having gone through it in this manner, it's actually not that many items that we can vote on everything except for some delineated items if we wanted to, including the 6,500. So the items that I've got marked as potentially questionable are 192 and 6,500. And then I go down to the third page, basically 230 all the way down to 237. That's my list.
And what about 196 and 197 on page 2? Well, I guess those are going back.
Those are going back.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. What if, oh, there's nothing, never mind, there's nothing there. I was gonna say 191, but there's nothing there.
Why would we carry over line 226, 3,900 for a part-time fire inspector? Why would
He didn't finish that 5,000 last year?
The work in progress?
What did we budget this year? I don't have my.
It was 5,000 and he,
Got it here, Andy. If you look, this item, see July 2023 to July 2020, it's got our budget in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't budget anything.
That's because we didn't start.
Yeah, he didn't budget anything for this year.
Right, so that's a
Right.
project
So
in
that
works.
is- okay.
So that's
Yep,
kind of
that
legit.
makes sense.
We didn't start till like January or February this year, so it's going on.
Yep. I know we were catching up, and that's,
Senior Center furniture dollar. Okay, any other items? So I've got 192, just as a reminder, and then 230 through 237, we've got questions on, but we can approve everything else. And my concern is that there are bills that are coming in that may need payment, for example, for what you just found out was a work in progress. So,
Is your recommendation then to carry over the amounts that are recommended with the exception of the...
yes.
designated.
Yep, and because this is nicely laid out, we can make a motion like that, as opposed to having to do all this. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the recommended carryovers with the exception of 192, line items 192, and then 230 through 237. Just checking if Michelle's got it.
Yep.
Yep, 192 and 230? 237. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Well, he already made the motion.
Oh, you did?
I'll second.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, further discussion?
I mean, I guess one of my concerns is with all of these notes and the ones in red that say decision needed. I mean, that sounds like we're waiting for some sort of information or there were questions on it or something.
Well, for the stuff that goes to surplus, it doesn't really matter. Some of the other ones.
I mean, I guess all those are designated as return to surplus
They are, all the red, yeah.
with a few questions for Roberge
And if needed, we could allocate money during the course of the year.
Yeah,
If they come back and say, well, you eliminated miscellaneous other for $1,000 and we needed that miscellaneous other.
or Jane Beisco ordered gear June 29th
Yep.
for $3,000. And
yeah.
we'd be nice. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right,
Let me just ask before we vote, the lower Mill Pond construction, 150,000 returned to surplus, tentative no?
No, that's a no.
Yeah, I mean, why is it tentative? It's a no.
Yeah. I just don't think that's valid anymore. It's been
Okay.
a long time.
because we haven't done the engineering yet. So there's no reason to provide for,
It's fine with me to leave it as a return to surplus, as long as that's the right decision.
okay.
Take a vote. Did we vote?
Any other, I know, what would you? Any other comments or questions? Because I think that gives the bulk of the approvals that are required. And then next month, we can revisit these items.
Yep.
Okay?
And just to be clear, who is following up to make sure that those, like, they'll get feedback from the individuals
Well, we
that are
can
responsible?
contact the spenders and say, there's questions here, do you really need it? And if not, they can let it go, or if they want to defend it, maybe they need to write up something.
Just as a reminder, Michelle, if you just put this on the agenda so that it is the first thing that we cover. Yeah, that'll prompt everybody a week before.
Would you like me to call it?
Carry forward further discussion or something like that.
Carry over.
Carry over, redo. Carry forward discussion. All right, vote.
Okay, don't worry about it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay. Tricky.
The next sheet is the fund, list of the funds, which is 2 pages with red fund numbers in the top there. This is mainly informational, but it gives you an idea where these funds are as and these funds get action during the year for one reason or another, too much. sometimes they just accumulate till a project or a fire truck. I don't think there's any action needed on this.
Nope.
Just curiosity, Tim, down at the bottom of the page, second line up, ARPA U.S. Treasury.
Interest.
What, 709 in revenues and 977 in expenditures? What was that all about?
Well, it looks pretty hefty for interest, but for revenues, as we continue to give money out to organizations that haven't taken their money yet, that would be the expenditures. In terms of the revenue, Treasury came from the Treasury, but
Well, there are also ARPA line items up above, including economic recovery grants. So I'm just confused as to how the ARPA funds are being described here.
well, that fellow George Cribb did the underwriting. These are the economic recovery. I think those are the 10,000 and less ones. Isn't that right?
Have we not received?
Economic recovery, that's the small ones, right?
Revenue. The 709, you want to see in batches, the other funding,
Yeah,
and then,
because it was like 2.1 was the ARPA fund.
right.
So at the beginning of the year, July 1st, 2022, the balance was whatever, 147. And then by the end of the year, it was minus 528,132. But this is not on a cash basis. So we had ARPA funds that came in, and we also doled out ARPA money, and maybe that was staged of some sort.
Right.
So these numbers are for the fiscal year just ended.
Right.
And you're saying maybe we got in ARPA money in the prior fiscal year
Oh, yeah.
that went that covered the difference between 709 and 977.
Right.
Yeah, I think that ARPA income,
So we got the income, but we hadn't doled out the money yet.
Right.
And so for
That's a
the,
logical explanation.
but it's a logical one, but I don't know whether it's the right one.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Tim, I have a question for you. Under Garvin Fireworks, it says expenditures there 7160, but they only spent 6189. Do I get a check back?
with interest.
It's about 3/4 of the way down.
With last year's interest. All right, any other questions or comments on fund balances?
And
It
then-
for financial reports? Oh,
Well, the one that has Michelle's writing on it, that would be the expenditures for fiscal '23.
where we started, Tim, was the revenues, which was that one or two pager early on.
Yeah,
This one. Double-sided. And so we were ahead of revenues,
right, yeah,
730 grand.
at the bottom of the report.
And on the outflow side,
Yeah, 730, almost 731 on the revenue.
So the way to read this, are we to the good on the expense side?
Yeah, well, you can see
6
it's
million?
4% underspent, so $1.5 million.
Yeah, close to normal.
And, this is without adjustments and so forth,
So this is preliminary,
so, yeah, very.
information only.
If you can look down and see. And I guess as we can go through this, not necessarily right now, but anything that's overexpended by 20 would trigger that town meeting.
Is that by department or by line item?
Department.
Department. I don't think there were any, that the fire department came in at 19.
Yeah, and
Still gonna have to appropriate additional funds.
Yeah.
right.
We knew about this, and, we also don't know if all the bills are in.
Well, they're 19,
I know.
20.
So if there's $700 out there, that could be a problem.
Yeah. But we did not, I think in our earlier minutes, we said we were aware of the vehicle
Yep.
fuel and the electricity and stuff,
Absolutely.
maybe make an appropriation, but we have not.
Right. We wanted to wait till the end for that reason to not.
Yeah,
That is the only department that even comes close, so.
Right.
But even if there's another one,
There's one that was 13.
public safety animal control is 5,000,
Transfer stations.
Yeah.
so there are departments that are over.
Oh, definitely
Right.
over, but I'm
Right,
talking.
but we want to
within
make
spitting
sure all the
distance of
bills are
20.
in before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the stuff under 20 can be offset by departments with pluses, so.
But we still have to approve the additional appropriations for the department.
I think it's transfers, and I don't know that we do. I think if somebody's over 20, I don't know that we went through it. Anybody that has a minus number and you appropriate, $1,800, $1,900 tax.
well, you don't have to do that, though, because the
Transfer.
measure is the subtotal, it's not the individual line items.
Right.
So there's no need.
It's just by department.
By department,
Right.
yeah. So the
But if a
19,
department went over, then we need to approve that overage.
yeah,
Well, take tax, they're 1956 overspent.
Right.
I don't know that we finance appropriation to make that whole, because there are other budgets that are under. And the transfers at the end of the year can, right?
You haven't really got payroll yet.
we're good, let's cross the bridge when we get to it.
Get Kelly to,
I don't think that we're gonna be in,
but anything that's definitely over 20, we'd have to ramp up for that.
all right. So, good news on both sides.
Seems so. And the last sheet is July for this fiscal year, which it gives you the full budget and any activity so far, which is not that revealing right now.
So the only thing I'm seeing, Tim, is that probate is already over by 2000.
Yeah, and I look back on that, and it was plain that I think they had sent their request in properly, and I don't know why that was a goof.
That's like a one-time bill that we...
Yeah,
Okay.
because they had a capital element in it as well, but it isn't just that capital amount. So in our budget book, I think it had the proper number, but for some reason, this other amount was approved. Looking at the minutes, I couldn't see why that amount was approved, and it wouldn't be the amount that should have been approved.
So we share in their expenses, we don't share in their revenue at all, probate?
Hope that the expenses are net of revenues.
I don't,
Yeah, we had 7.9 in our budget book.
I don't know, you have to look at the budget.
Well, if you're in intestate,
Yes, it ought to be,
if you're in intestate, like the judge gets like 10% or something crazy. There's some weird arrangement.
intestate, I'm not.
If you're in intestate, yeah. All right.
yep.
Other business.
Yeah. First up, Park and Recreation has awarded the contract for the Cross Lane basketball, tennis, and pickleball refurbishment, those courts. And they will be starting fairly soon, and I think it'll be done by October. It's a vendor that's been used before, and they were involved in helping Don with the quote and all that sort of thing. So there are 3 tennis courts. 2 of them will stay tennis courts, and 1 will actually be reconfigured to have 4 pickleball courts on the tennis court surface. And the basketball will be, stay where it is, of course. And I think there's a 21-day curing period before they can be painted. So Don's gonna lock the fences because they're gonna do new fencing, and he'll lock the fences for the courts and then take the net hoops off the basketball thing. So kids put some signage saying, "Please stay off the thing." So that's good. It's within the $450 that we had squirreled away for it. I mentioned police accreditation, and we had a session here with the police and the consultant, and she supplied us with 2 quotes, and one is $19,500 and the other was $24,500. And let's see, Katie, what were do you remember it was what they do is the Tier 1, they do 121 standards, I guess those are policies, and then they 350 proofs, which I guess means once the standard is there, they sample, make sure people are doing what they are supposed to be doing. And Tier 2 is 83 and 650 proofs. So I guess the letter gets into this here, but okay, so one quote, Tier 1 and Tier 2 policy compliance only. The second quote is Tier 1 and Tier 2 policy and proofs. That's the verification aspect. Everyone was impressed with this lady, and Matt Ward was thinking about helping us out, but he said she really knows her stuff and it's more complex, so I think he said I would defer to somebody who's that close to the ground on it. There are some aspects that we need to have access to the state police, some kind of a system called Power DMS. I don't know what that stands for. So it's a 3-year thing. Year 1 is kind of over. Year 2 is the next one. Year 3 is 2020, fiscal 25. So we're a little behind the 8 ball, but not badly. So we'll probably come back with a recommendation on one of these 2 bids. It involves, a whole lot of scrutiny of the policies. We're under the state police A&O manual, so it's pretty clear that the policy should be up to date. Unlike a department, say East Lyme or Saybrook, they do their own policy, so they may have some holes in it. And then it's a question of guiding us through this process. It's an unfunded mandate, so this would likely require, unless we have that educational training budget, some money, an unfunded mandate, so we'll be back on that. Miami Beach has made a presentation to the Board of Selectmen, which involves, they gave us a little package, but what they want to do is they assert that this is Pond Road, Hartford Avenue, Portland, the parking lot. And they have, Miami Beach houses are between the parking lot and the beach. And these people feel like orphans because they don't have access through Miami Beach to their properties. You have to come down public roads, ours. So they claim that an agreement which was executed by their president in 1997 and myself, that the president did not have proper authority to sign the agreement. The agreement was a settlement agreement about a lawsuit. Miami said, we own the road. Town said, don't think so. And the court said, they do. And so the agreement says vehicles circulate here, and a parking lot fellow over here, Henson, can come in and out. So they want to extinguish this road, and they say if they do that, they could put a barrier or something, and a fence at the end, and a fence here, and then the town could make a new road. Well, there are at least 2 phone poles in that area. There's drainage underneath, and I don't know what the standards would be for road width and the nature of the road. These are pretty humble roads. These are all basically oil roads. So they are maintaining with this, since the guy did not have proper, he was represented by an attorney, mind you, but there's some friction, and we've heard a proposal during the summer, and then they made this thing at the selectmen's meeting, and then the alternative would be to have a road go through a lot further up, maybe toward the top. But it's been this way since '97. I've never heard people crab too much about this. And the other thing is, for these people to get to their house, they would have to come in one of the streets, north-south streets, the way they rotate, so it could be almost over to Hawk's Nest, and they have to wiggle down through all the maze to get to their house. How bad is this? So it's 3 months. It would be open off-season, and they might help participate in the cost of the road. Well, who knows what that might be. So we're not expressing any, we haven't reacted to this thing. I have a feeling the selectmen are a cool reception about this. So I think those are three items there.
That was new business.
You want to comment?
Well, just so you know, that our lawyers, or the 2 lawyers from Miami and Jack Collins, are working on the validity of the 97 agreement. That's the first thing. That's the first hurdle.
Keep Jack's guys in business for a while.
Well, they're pretty litigious because they went to an appeal on their fence, and that's not the first time they've had litigation about their fence and access and stuff like that. And then, of course, the tree was another bone of contention, which was happily resolved. So.
It would have looked nice with ornaments on it, I thought. Just wonder, Yes. So that's the other business that I have. Anybody else? I'm not sure.
Selectmen's report.
Okay, Halls Road, the Bow Bridge, the Halls Road had a meeting talking about the Bow Bridge. There were 3 designs that were shown in executive session to the selectmen and the committee. The reason being that they didn't want to get the design stuff out early on until it was more refined and get people thinking, well, I like this one, I like that one. So they will be presenting in a public fashion the two designs that they feel are the best ones, and then those have price tags associated with them. And so that will be rolled out, I would say, in a not-too-distant future. Meanwhile, the design work is moving forward. We have the funding for that. So I expect they'll be finishing up the design work. I would say here it is August, maybe a couple of months. I can't imagine it take much more than that. Then, of course, the big question would be, based on which design is selected. The numbers are not terribly different, but that will be a requirement to go find funding for that. And Ian Twining, the chairman, worked with the Connecticut Trails group for some smaller money, but there might be a larger possibility there. And we'll have to see what the price tag is and where we might look, because we have a lot on our plate with school and senior center. Soundview Sewers, we still have not gotten anything definite from the state. I know some of the private beaches are getting a little impatient that there's no confirmation of this forgivable loan. And I think they're going to be starting to say, if we don't hear something by a certain date, we're just going to forget it. You know, it's economically unfeasible. Now, mind you, the project from their perspective includes the sewer, but it also includes the stormwater drainage that they want to put in, and in the case of Miami, that'd be a significant item, and the road repaving at the end. So if you look at the whole project, it's a little disingenuous to say that the sewer is the whole culprit. You know, it's all three. And as I mentioned earlier, there are negotiations back and forth about the beaches in the town would need to renegotiate some terms with London for the disposal of the wastewater. And when we did this initially, they said, well, you're a few months after the others, so we're going to make your price higher. We said, well, they bought the capacity for all of us. We're just exercising our option. No, it doesn't work that way. So they're at it again. So we'll see where that comes out. Senior Center, we have completed, thanks to Katie helping here, we completed the STEEP grant for $500,000. Jerry Baker has worked tirelessly on that, but we pushed the button on that, and Lime, I think, is doing the same, $500,000 each. And I guess there's end of September, they'll let us know yes or no at that point. The Senior Center is arranging for alternate space and storage space for the contents. They want to be out of there by mid-October so that a contractor could begin shortly thereafter. They're interviewing construction managers so that the project will have an owner's rep, not full-time, but they're watching our interests, and I guess the owner's rep would also evaluate their subcontractors as well as...
When you say owner's rep, are you conflating that with the construction manager?
Same.
Well, the construction manager is a robust business, right?
Yeah.
May act as an owner's rep, but it's a significant contract with responsibility all along the way. I mean, you probably know more about construction managers than other folks here. You know, from today through the end of construction to help all along the way, including hiring the subs to do the work.
Yep.
And my distinction is it's not simply an individual who has the authority to act on behalf of the senior center, but it's this construction experts who are supposed to take the senior center by the hand and make sure the job is done properly.
Right. So there's an RFP, and then there'll be a contract with the construction manager. Once that's set, you can turn to work on hiring the contractor. 2 steps. And perhaps November would be roughly a time to think about starting the project. Ferry Road, I think the tree easement, one of the properties is, I believe, agreed upon. I haven't heard 100%, but that seems likely. And then that project can be submitted back to DOT for blessing, and then you could go out to bid. So I don't know whether we'll make August, but very shortly, if we could get that out on the street pretty soon and see what the bids are, and hopefully they'll be reasonable. But let's see. Let's see, Swan Brook, periodically we have to dig the crib out because shells and or sand are both accumulate in the crib, and it tends to block it. But the machine comes down, does a little digging, and the pressure is such that once it's dug out a little bit, the pressure blows it out. So that's helpful. We should probably hire you to drive down the street.
Does that come back to the fireworks?
Make that look like chicken feet. So once we are trying to get the camera to go up and down the pipes just to confirm there's no issue with the joints of the cement pipes. I don't really think it's much, because you can look up the pipe and it looks like you're looking down a shotgun barrel, you know. You don't see any major thing in a way. But the next one's my favorite, Tanamahague Road. We made an assault on the property in the, I guess it was the early part of August. I think we had 5 or 6 public works vehicles and grease paint on our faces and stuff. And so, but we went down there and yanked about 5 plants out of the ground and put them gently on the abutter's property. And then the flail mower went down to the water as far as it could, buzzing the Phragmites. We were not interrupted, which was nice, but the very handsome sign that I pounded in front of the gate, it was reported by a neighbor that was gone in a matter of hours. And then, I think by the next day or so, the plants apparently were replanted.
Yes, I heard that.
So we're making a new plan, which might involve removing them from. And
Better water them, though.
pardon?
You better water them, in case you got to bring them back.
Tim, well,
I've heard the word chipper.
what's the status? My recollection is that negotiations for an amicable agreement have been terminated as unsuccessful.
It's been fruitless.
Yeah, so what is the status now of litigation being initiated either by the Framptons or the town?
We'll see.
But there's not been a decision yet as to who's going to sue
Well, we
whom?
don't intend to, I don't think we want to start litigating. I think we want to keep stuff off our road. Maybe we'll give them a ticket for littering.
Or
Road.
removal costs,
Yeah.
not the first time, but the second or third time.
Yeah. So, there's no.
All right, so we're
to an
just going to assert our ownership rights and let them
Yeah.
sue us.
Yeah, because,
Litigate, have to have burden of proof. Whoever starts the litigation has to have burden of proof. We'd like it to be them.
yeah, we don't want to be the ones pursuing.
I planted some rose bushes on Sill Lane,
Yeah.
right in the median.
As you heard, Anita starts on Monday. We're very excited about that. Sheila McKinley-Bell is our HR consultant, and she has been here for, I guess, nearly a month, right? I think it's a month. And she's handling a few things, so it's a relief to have somebody that knows what's going on personnel-wise at your elbow. Land use, Kim Barrows will be retiring on the 1st of September up in land use, so Craig Bonatti, who is the husband of our social services
Amy.
person, Amy, he's up there and settling in. So I think we're filling some of these holes that have been very difficult. Ethan, our police, went to school at the State Police Academy, Cuba, and Ethan's now under his field training, which I guess is something like 13 weeks, or it's a long time. And you're supposed to ride along as opposed to solo. And so I think the trooper would like to send another younger person to police school, because the school runs about $3,800, I think, for 6 months, and they come out step one as a result of that, and then we have a 5-year agreement, which, if they don't perform, could be altered, but at least you don't want them to get out of ding-dong school and then some other department scoops them up.
Right.
And we paid Ethan when he was in school as well.
Yeah.
Not at his top rate, but
He
we
was
paid
$25
something.
an hour.
Yep.
So, yes. Yeah, we went to the graduation, and it was, boy, there's a high school up there in Meriden. Mahoney, is it? Whew. You think we have nice stuff. You walk by, as you're getting into the auditorium, you walk by this audio thing. It's like maybe half as long as this table. Just electronics, all these lights and stuff. It's phenomenal.
Who's their superintendent? Who's their superintendent?
Yeah, God. Yeah, so, I think that's a brief report.
Very good. Any questions for Tim? Anything he missed? Great. Public comment? Anyone? Yes.
I understand the vote. Thank you for adding the comments. That's great. And I also want to applaud you for finally getting the pickleball part moving forward. I know a lot of people have wanted that for a long time, and it's great to hear that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good. Any additional comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Great, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Hey.